Yesterday, I saw a patient in my physio clinic who told me that she didn't feel like she was strong enough to start strength training. So I had to remind her that I had just witnessed her stand up from the chair in the waiting room without using her hands. She then bent over and picked up a backpack that looked relatively heavy to me. She then held that backpack in one hand while she then walked from the waiting area through the gym and into the clinic room. Then, holding the bag in her hands, she then sat slowly down to her chair. She had just done some form of squat. She had done some form of hip hinge or deadlift by picking up that bag from the floor. She had then done what we call a suitcase carry. So she carried a weight in one hand whilst walking with a very relaxed walking pattern into the room. And then she'd done another squat. And this time, not only did she not use her hands to sit down, she was holding a weight in her hands. So she was doing it with some additional weight. She was strong enough to start strength training. She was already doing some kind of strength training to a certain degree. She'd already got the basic principles of the exercises. She just needed to fit it into a structure in order to actually see some gains in strength. I'm Chris. I'm the host of Never Taught to Lift podcast, and I wanted to talk a bit more about that today in terms of why it's so important to recognize you are strong enough to start. You don't have to wait till you hit this kind of threshold before you can then get started. And we're going to go into that in a bit more detail. My patient wasn't the only person I see that has this limiting belief. There is just a lot of people that feel like they need to be a certain level of strength in order to start strength training. They feel like they might be too weak or too out of shape to begin. And they feel like lifting weights is for people that already have the ability to do it. Particularly as older adults, sometimes you see these stories of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s who are lifting weights. And the automatic assumption is, well, they've done it all their life. That's why they're doing it. And hopefully through the podcast, you're starting to see that that's not the case. So Mary and Linda last week was a fantastic episode if you've not listened to that already. They were in their mid-70s, had a massive list of medical conditions and different surgeries that would be enough to put anyone off starting anything new. And they didn't think they were gym people. They'd never done it in the past, no form of exercise. And now Linda is lifting 90 pounds or roughly about 45 kilograms of weight. And she's absolutely fallen in love with it, as has Mary. So hopefully their story and others are helping remind you that you don't need to be this certain level of strength to get started. You need to get started to build the strength to be able to do more of it. There is a belief that strength training means heavy weights, big barbells, big dumbbells, kettlebells, etc. And it, to a certain degree, yes, it can be that, but it can also be body weight. You can use things around the house with a backpack with bottles of water in. Strength training just means you're pushing yourself out your comfort zone slightly enough to build strength as a result. So a lot of people feel like they can't do strength training because it has to be those heavy dumbbells. And a lot of people also have these past failures where they've tried some kind of gym program, YouTube video, and it was a kind of one size fits all. It was designed for anybody. And because it didn't take their needs into account, it then meant that they didn't have success with it. They sort of failed to continue or persist with it, or they had a reaction, so they give up with it. So again, adds to that narrative that strength training isn't for me. I'm just not strong enough to do it. It creates this kind of paradox, that belief that you need strength to build strength. And you could say it's a little bit like saying, I need to be clean in order to have a shower, or I need to be rich in order to start investing. And I've been listening to a lot of personal finance podcasts recently, and actually the opposite is true. Wherever you're at now, if you can start investing just a little bit, then you're more likely to feel rich as you get older. In the same way, is it wherever you are now, if you can add a little bit of resistance into those exercises, we can start building strengths in the future. A bit of an example I wanted to use of how my mindset's changed on a couple of similar things was, the first one was my final year of school. There's another class that we're doing something sports science related, and they got given a challenge of within a week, could they teach themselves to juggle? Now, up until that point, I used to think there's people who could juggle and there's people that couldn't juggle, and you were either one or the other. And having seen them start to practice it, I then, in sort of break times and after school, I thought I'd give it a go as well, and surprised myself within the week, I could juggle as well. And that kind of opened up this idea to me that there might be some things that maybe I got it wrong. Maybe not that you either one person or the other. It's you can teach yourself to be the other person. And juggling was one for me. I then took that mindset just after university and trained to do the London Marathon. Now, up until that point, I hated cross country at school, hadn't done any long distance running, and I had that belief that there are marathon runners and there are non-marathon runners, and I was a non-marathon runner. And I thought, I went through the ballot, happened to get in, and went through the training program and was able to complete it. Because again, I could already run. So why couldn't I then be a marathon runner? And again, all I needed was that structure in place to help teach my body how to gradually adapt to the increasing demands of what I was asking it to do. Again, that's what we want to do with strength training, is find out where you are to be able to build, and then you can get to a point where you feel a lot stronger and confidently do the things that you want to be able to do. So an important part is that discovery of where you're at now. And I wanted to give you a few more ideas of strength that you have and you're using on a daily basis. So we've already just talked about standing up from a chair, from a sitting position, is if you can do that without using your hands, you've got strength in those squat-based muscles, the muscles that help you do a squat. If you can walk upstairs, you can do a step up. And if you can do it without holding onto the banister, you're also combining that with balance. If you can carry shopping in from the car and you can pick it up from the floor and then lift it up onto the kitchen work surface, you've got a huge amount of strength there. You've got the strength to be able to hold and carry. So you've got grip strength there, and then you're carrying that in. You might pick it up from the floor. That's like a deadlift. And then as you lift up, it's almost like an upright row to then place it on the kitchen work surface. So again, replicating quite a few different exercises there. You might need to put things away on a high shelf. And sometimes there's things that got a fair amount of weight to them as well. And that is a bit like doing a shoulder press. So those push-based muscles, you've got some strength there. Another example to that might be in an aeroplane where you're trying to lift your bag up into the overhead storage. Again, just like a shoulder press. You might be able to get up and down from the floor. And getting off the floor is actually a really complex movement pattern. That if you've got the strength to do that, then you're again a lot further ahead than you think, and a lot further ahead than a lot of other people. Other examples are picking up the grandchildren and then maybe carrying them as well. We've talked about putting a bag in the overhead storage, but you might have a large suitcase as well, and you might need to get that from the floor into the car. Yes, they're on wheels and you can carry it that way, but actually getting it into a car is quite a feat in itself. And if you've packed for a good holiday, you're probably close to 20 kilos there. If you struggle with some of those, it's not that you're weak, it's just you're untrained. It's all unfamiliar to you. And that's a big difference, because weak means and implies that you have no ability to generate force or very little force. Whereas untrained means you're capable, you just haven't had the repetitions needed and you haven't got that system in place to start building strength from it. So I then wanted to go into a little bit about that starting strength and building strength and where we're at with it. So up until now, everything you've done on a day-to-day basis has built a level of baseline strength for you. You often have a bit of muscle memory left from things you did when you were younger. So even if you did a bit of gym in the past and not done it for a while, there's still a bit of memory back there. And we often have these neural pathways in place, but some of them can become dormant and need a bit of reminding how to work again. And I'll come on to that in a second. But unfortunately, there comes a point where generally it starts earlier, but normally from the age of 50, it really accelerates as we start losing muscle mass with age, a process called sarcopenia. And as we lose that muscle strength, the things that we did on a day-to-day basis that helped build some of the baseline strength isn't enough to counter the decline in strength. So we then start having a net loss. And I say we start noticing things more and more that we struggle to do. And unfortunately now those day-to-day activities, say, they aren't building our strength. So we have to do something a bit more progressive, a bit more structured in order to build the strength. But the good news is it is possible to build strength. Doesn't matter what your age is. If we can work in the right way, then we can build you some muscle strength. I'm not going to go too much into the structure you need to build muscle strength. So I've got a couple of episodes where I've done that in the past. So 2 that you might want to listen to is episode number 2, which forms effectively a strength training 101 that's going to give you all the theory you need in order to build muscle strength, what intensity you need to do it at, what some of the language we use in strength training is. And that's going to give you a really good grounding. And then I've got episode 9 where I talk about the 7 functional movement patterns. So it helps you choose which exercises that you can include in a strength training program, which ones are going to be the best suited to you and your ability level right now. So do take a look at that one. You also might be interested in the free ebook that I've got that will help you build a strength training program that you can work through from a sort of minimum of 12 weeks onwards. But it's helping you build it around your ability level and any conditions that you might have or any previous injuries. So yeah, if you haven't started yet and you want a bit of a guide and in order to build that strength, then that free ebook is something you might want to check out. So do have a look. It's nevertoldtolift.com/ebook. And I'll put all the links to the episodes and the ebook in the show notes, or if you're watching us on YouTube, in the description below this. Now, as a beginner, you do actually have a bit of advantage against some people who've been doing strength training for a long time, because in the early stages of strength training, you actually see some really quick progressions as you go through. Because I alluded to earlier, sometimes you have these neural pathways that lay dormant from that muscle memory you had before, and now starting to repeat some of the exercises and just go from nothing to having some form of program, you're starting to teach the brain how to use the muscle strength you've got more efficiently. So you're waking up those neural pathways. And just by doing that, you start to feel a lot stronger quite quickly. Now, your muscles haven't done anything in that time. They've not got stronger, or in terms of they've not changed physiologically. It takes a lot longer. It takes about 3 months of consistent training for the muscles to change. But say the brain's connection with those muscles change quite quickly. So that can be really motivating. You can recognize some quick wins very early, feel motivated by that, and then want to carry on. Whereas someone who's been training for a long time, as you get to that point, it takes a lot longer to see any noticeable change from sort of week to week, where the change you can make in a week by just getting started is huge. Your body adapts to whatever you ask of it. So right now, you've adapted to everyday life and everything you do. What we're going to ask you to do is adapt to that daily life plus a little bit more. And then once you've done that, we're going to add a little bit more. But to do that, we really need to find out where you are with your strength. What is your starting point? So I've got a little test for you. So I'm going to get you to do the following movement patterns and let me know if you can do them. So you're going to start to see if you can stand from a chair without using your hands. If you can do a squat. And if you can do a squat, you can add a little bit of weight and do a squat again. And then we can gradually keep increasing that weight. If you struggle, maybe let's try a higher chair, because the higher the chair is, the less effort you need to get up from it. Can you lift a bag of shopping or groceries up from the floor and carry it across the room? Again, if you can, you're strong enough to start doing a bit of a deadlift. You could even use a bag of shopping or a bag with some bottles of water in. You can do a carry exercise where you're carrying a weight across a room, back again. So we've already got 3 exercises that you can start to do. Can you walk up 5 stairs and back down again? If you can do step ups or step downs. Again, that's another exercise. Again, if you struggle with that, what if we did not a full step, but you maybe step up to something that's only an inch or 2 high and you're just doing a very small step up? That might be something you can start on. And then can you get up from lying down and up into standing? If you can, as I talked about earlier, that is you're ahead of a lot of people. We can start to use that as an exercise in itself. If you can't, then maybe we start to try and get down to the floor, but using a sofa to the side, and we push up off the sofa to stand back up again. But that's a test. So yeah, up and down from a chair without using your hands. Can you lift a bag of shopping from the floor and carry it across the room? Can you walk up 5 stairs? And can you get up from standing? Have a try, and then let us know in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube how you got on. And then I want you to remember, whatever you can do now, that isn't your limitation. That is your launching pad. That is your baseline where you can progress from. But unless you know where you are now, it becomes very difficult to build off it. So you do need to kind of go through an exercise like this to help you with that. And then I want you to sort of celebrate what you are able to do and recognize that as a positive rather than feeling like you're being held back by it and it's a really negative feeling. And if you can do it, let's see going forwards whether you can start to do maybe 10 or 15 of each of those. And you could then maybe add a little bit of weight to it. If you're doing 10 to 15 of those and you can start to find it challenging towards the end because of how much strength you've got in the muscles, we're going to start building strength. You've just created yourself a really easy strength training program. Back to my point at the start, and to recap, you don't need to be strong to start strength training. You need to start strength training to get strong. And the beautiful thing is you have everything you need to start. You've already got some level of muscle strength. You just need to recognize where that is. You've got everything around the house that you might need to start strength training. Let's say a bag with bottles of water in is an easy enough starting point. And then there are lots of different progressions you can do from there. But please do take that first step. And if you are struggling and want a bit of help and guidance, then do take a look at that ebook, completely free to download. And it's nevertoiltolift.com/ebook. And if you have any specific questions from this episode, then please do reach out to me. It's chris@nevertoiltolift.com. Then next week, I have a great episode for you. We are joined by Siobhan O'Donovan, who is a physiotherapist, and she talked to us all about breast and the barriers to exercise that they create, whether that's pain, embarrassment, excessive movement. And she talks about the importance of a well-fitting sports bra and what an impact that can have then on your desire and your ability to exercise, do activity, do strength training, and how the importance of the strength in the muscles around the back plays a part in all of this as well. So if you are a woman who is struggling with that, or you know of anyone, your partner is struggling with it, and then please do let them know that episode is coming. That'll be next Wednesday. But for now, I will leave you to it, and I will see you next week.